Thank you for that kind introduction. It's quite the title to receive the architect of this school. My goodness. There's many people that did a lot of work in this, and it was really an honor for me to be involved. In fact, my husband Jerry and I have been involved in sustainability work at Stanford for a long time now. Some of you may be familiar with the Yamazaki Environment and Energy Building, affectionately known as Y2E2. So that was our first significant gift to Stanford in terms of sustainability. And since then, we've been involved at different levels. I mean, that building was actually significant, not only in that it became the home for interdisciplinary work, but also in that it kind of led the way for more sustainable buildings, new buildings at Stanford. So that was a great launch pad for many of the works that I hope you'll be hearing today. I had the pleasure to serve on the Woods Institute's advisory council now for, I guess, almost 15 years. And institutes have played and will be playing a big role in the new school, which you'll also be hearing more from the panelists today. Howard mentioned that I served as the chair of the task force, which worked alongside the faculty leaders, Cam Moeller and Steve Graham, to really think about what should be the scope, the impact, the size of this new school. And I must say it was an exercise in Zoom because we conducted all of this between September of 2020 to the spring of 2021, with our deliverable being the presentation to the board. And it was an incredible experience for me, and also a validation of how important this work was, because we had very high-powered volunteers serving on this advisory council. And I must say that the participation was nearly 100%. And we had monthly meetings. And when you are involved with a task force at Stanford, it's not just a meeting that you have to attend. There's actually a pre-meeting and a post-meeting and a preparatory meeting. And so one meeting actually becomes 5. And yet everybody was really committed. So it's with great excitement that we are here today to be able to share with you about this school. And before I turn it over, I just want to say that this school stands on a very strong foundation. It's not that we're starting from zero. When we were part of this task force, we were informed that there were already about 1,000 classes at Stanford that existed that could be already counted as, under the subject of sustainability. The school will be starting with about 100 faculty. You'll hear more about this. So it'll hit the road running. It's not like we're launching and it's brand new. I mean, Stanford has had a lot of practice in this, a lot of knowledge, a lot of expertise already. So the impact will be felt immediately. But now all of this is going to be under one umbrella, the school. And in this, it'll be a lot more powerful than the distinct and diverse programs and institutes and departments that we had so far. And so with further ado, I would like to turn it over to the panel. And here I just have to say a few administrative things. There were quite a few questions that were submitted before the event. Thank you very much. I've incorporated as many as possible into the initial set of questions. Arun, we'll start with you. Arun is our new dean at the school. This school is Stanford's first in 75 years. Tell us more about its unique structure, how you plan to scale for impact, and your initial priorities.
Well, first of all, Akiko, thank you for your leadership. And you were there, pretty much all throughout, and especially the Blueprint Advisory part. But this has been going on. Just to give a little, first of all, thank you for coming and the excitement about the school. It is super exciting to be launching the first school in 75 years on arguably the defining issue of this century, of our times. And this is really for the next generation, the children, grandchildren, who will, if we don't address this right now, we could be in serious trouble later on. Given that, this has been building up for the last 4 or 5 years. We had the long-range planning with Scott Fendorf and Lynn Hildemann led the effort. That led to the organizational structural committee, and then that Noah Diffenbaugh and I co-led with John Payne on that, and there are several others. And then it was handed off to Steve Graham and Cam Moeller, and we are incredibly thankful to Cam and Steve's leadership that built this momentum. I don't call it baton passing. This is momentum building over the last 4 or 5 years, and then the launch this year of the school. And the way we thought about this, the structure of the school, we had to take on all aspects of this problem, and we had to design an organization that would address the challenges. So this is a 3-legged stool. We have on one leg the departments. We've launched a new Department of Oceans, and there are other departments in the School of Earth that we're building on. There's a new Social Sciences division. The departments are there because that's where we recruit faculty, admit students, offer degrees, curricula are developed. The institutes that you talked about, the Woods Institute for the Environment and the Precourt Institute for Energy, they have changed the culture for interdisciplinary research on campus and brought people from different parts of campus to solve problems for breakthroughs or proof of concept of ideas. And that is, the people are not just faculty, the students have come together and done this. We felt the institutes, if they're part of the school, it gives the permeability to span across campus and bring the campus together, because sustainability is not just a business school issue or a law school or an engineering. This is all of the above. And we needed organization that could bring that together. While that was necessary, we felt we need a third leg for stability, for addressing this issue at the magnitude and the scale and the speed, in John Doerr's words, the speed and scale that is needed. And we added a third element, which is the accelerator, which is really trying to understand what the real challenges are in the world and then co-developing solutions with them for impact. This is all about impact at speed and scale. And this is, while the institutes you could think of as proof of concept of an idea that could be breakthrough, if something works, this is proof of scalability. And this has to be done with outside partners because we alone cannot scale. And so that's the accelerator. So those are the 3-legged stool. This is the structure of the school.
Thank you. We'll turn it over to John. And I have a question about your role as Senior Associate Dean of Faculty Affairs, but before we dive into that, can you describe your area of research and how it will be impacted by the new school?
Sure. So I'm a faculty member in the Department of Geological Sciences. My research is on mass extinctions in the geological record. So for those of you who haven't taken a geology class, there have been about 5 major mass extinction events in the past 550 million years. I focus a lot on the end Permian mass extinction, which was the most severe of these and happened 250 million years ago. And I've worked on the biological side of this as well as the geological side to try to understand what the environmental changes were that caused the end Permian mass extinction, and then the processes that allowed the biosphere to recover over the subsequent, say, 1 to 10 million years. It turns out that many of the circumstances of the end Permian extinction are circumstances that we're experiencing today in terms of climate change, particularly warming, changes in ocean chemistry in terms of pH and oxygen concentration. And so in the new school, it's been very exciting to see that I'll have more opportunities to take what we've learned from this giant planetary scale experiment 250 million years ago, which was before I think any of you were students at Stanford, and take that knowledge and apply it to the modern extinction. So I've been able to start projects where I'm looking at the factors that associate with extinction risk today and compare those to the patterns that we see of biological traits that associate with higher extinction threat in these ancient events.
Well, hopefully it doesn't take 1 to 10 million years to come up with a solution, but thanks to the accelerators, it won't happen, right?
This is why it's so important to avert a mass extinction.
Right. So in your administrative role, I understand you've done a lot to integrate faculty from across campus. Can you tell us about the organization you're building and the opportunities and challenges?
Right. So as Arun mentioned, we're launching new departments as part of the new school. So we'll have a new climate department, 2 new social science departments. We have a new oceans department. We have reimagined our energy resources engineering department as an energy science and engineering department. Geological sciences, as of January 1st, will become earth and planetary sciences. So universities are very stable structures, which is great. But the world is changing quickly, and this has given us an opportunity to reconfigure faculty. And I think the challenges that we're facing are so interdisciplinary that rearranging faculty actually will accelerate our ability to do scholarship, to educate students, and to have impact in the world. And so it's been exciting for me in faculty affairs, bringing these new faculty members together, bringing them into the school from other parts of the university. I've had more conversations with more faculty members from more parts of Stanford in the past year and a half than I had in my first, say, 15 years on campus. And I think that's a sign of what we're doing, is that it is a school, but it's designed to be an open door to everybody on campus to engage in this.
And civil and environmental engineering,
excuse me.
department.
Excuse me, yes.
And if you look at the head count of all the faculty, it's 137 right now, and we're going to add 60 more faculty. And this is really a microcosm of the campus that's coming together. And that's exactly what is needed to address this in all the diversity and complexity.
And so the other thing that I would point out is because of the generous support of the school, we're able to increase the size of the faculty by another 50 to 60 faculty positions over the next decade. One of the things that's very exciting about that is that, as many of you will know, the demographics of our faculty don't always reflect very well the demographics of the students or the demographics of the world that we're working in. And that's very challenging to address because faculty turnover is generally very slow. The opportunity to hire a large number of faculty members over a short interval of time on a university timescale gives us an opportunity to bring our faculty composition much closer to alignment with the world that we're working in. And so we're all here on this podium, and everyone in the school is very excited about that opportunity as well. It's a really unusual one.
That's right. I know interdisciplinary was the buzzword 15 years ago, and now it's integrative, it sounds like. And I know, Scott, you'll be talking a little bit more about that for us. But just like John, before we start on your specific question, can you start by sharing your area of research and how you see the new school benefiting that work?
Yeah, I'd be happy to. So I'm a professor in earth system science, and my area of research is around biological and chemical processes that occur in soils and how those ultimately influence groundwater quality. So natural things like arsenic and uranium getting into groundwater, and then how that also impacts sustainable food production, particularly in the face of future climate change. And then lastly, a big thrust of our current research is looking at fire-impacted soils and what that means particularly for human health. The new school has really done 3 things to amplify the research. The first one is furthering the integrations. So when we think about things like the Woods Institute, that was really a hallmark in starting to integrate across campus, and the school is just taking it to the next level. The next one is that it really is empowering us to do more research through enhanced resources. So we want to study the problems and really dig into those deep, no pun intended. I use that a lot, but because I study soils, if you didn't catch that. All right. And then the third thing is really the part that Arun mentioned in terms of scaling. So we try to study the problems, but then we think about solutions. And when we think about solutions, we want to start bringing those really to scale that's a meaningful scale. And so the school is really uniquely providing that opportunity to really take us to the next level in terms of scaling into the real world.
Could you refer back to John's comments on the faculty composition and discuss the larger issue of DEI in the school?
Yeah, I'd be happy to take that. So we in the school have recognized, and across the university, but I'll focus really on the school, that DEI is really a central issue. And within the areas that really constitute this new Doerr School, we have had over the last 15 or 20 years an amplification of the diversity, but we're only in the nascent stages. We really need to take it to the next level, and so it's a really focal point of the school. And I think we're the first school that actually has an associate dean that is overseeing the DEI efforts. We have an office that's well staffed for that, and we're really amplifying the efforts that we've started over the last 10 years or so. So we're really trying to make it a hallmark and a starting point to the school.
Wonderful. Yeah, in our task force meetings, the idea of the culture and the value system that the school would embrace was also something that we discussed quite a lot deeply. So great to see that this work is really in the forefront. Now turning over to you, Jenna. I remember Jenna as one of the first faculty members that had a joint appointment with the Woods Institute. The first one, yes. So you were already back then a pioneer. Can you start by sharing your academic research first, and then I'll turn over to the question.
Sure. So as you mentioned, I'm jointly appointed between Civil and Environmental Engineering and the Woods Institute for the Environment, and I'm an unapologetic interdisciplinarian who works at this intersection of water and health and economic development. And my group works primarily in low and middle income countries. And we approach that from several different perspectives. So our current field work, for example, we're in India and Uganda and Kenya. And those projects with partners range from developing a new approach, a new technology for water treatment in isolated rural health clinics, all the way to policy experiments with local government trying to incentivize better maintenance of infrastructure they already have. And I think what excites me about the new school, many things do, but we have a lot of experience working with partners right from the start of an idea of sort of ideation through the development of an approach to a piece of research. And I know how valuable it is to have that engagement right from the beginning, as opposed to once we at Stanford have come up with a solution and we're looking around, who wants to implement this, you know? So the fact that this is a core value for the Doerr School, this engagement with external partners, I think is really going to amplify our impact. So I'm looking forward to that.
Can I say a little story about Jenna?
Of course.
So we had Bill Gates come to our campus and wanted to know more. And there was Jenna explaining what she does to Bill Gates. And as you know, Bill Gates knows a little bit about toilets and water quality, et cetera. And when Jenna started speaking to Bill, Bill suddenly realized, oh, she knows more than me. And then after that, after the meeting and all that, he circled back to me and said, I got to get together with Jenna, because she knows more about water quality and all than all the experts that are known out there. So that's Jenna.
Very nice.
Well, thank you, panelists, for this introductory part. Now we're going to turn over to the questions that have been submitted through the leading up to this panel. And also, please, a reminder to continue to use the QR code for any questions that you may have. Scott, I'm sure this is a burning question for everybody. Where will the school be located?
Yeah, that's a great question, and I'll try to orient you. So if you go to the western side of campus and think of where the Roble Gym is, if you were that's Panama is on one side of Roble Gym. If you were walking past Roble Gym, past Roble Field, and on out to the new Arriaga Gym out there in the pool, as you're walking from Roble Gym all the way out to the new gym, your right-hand side is where the new buildings are going to be. There's 2 new buildings that are coming. So they'll start over where the Terman Fountain is what we're going to call the Sustainability Commons, and then that'll have a walk that goes through the Green Earth Science Building, literally over the Heppel buildings. Those are big concrete bunkers that are sitting there, and then to the 2 new buildings that are out towards the back side of Y2E2, and then which will become a front side of Y2E2, and on out towards the new gym.
Exciting. Arun, I know this is coming up a lot. So can you tell us your current thinking about the school's engagement with the fossil fuel industry?
Now, this is a very important issue. Obviously, this has been raised by the students and faculty, as it should be raised, because there are issues related to our values, who we engage with, but it's not a monolithic opinion on this. I think we are, as we should, be hearing from the community who do not want Stanford to engage with the fossil fuel companies. There are other viewpoints as well. So I wrote a letter to the community and said, look, we need to listen to all the voices. After all, we are in a democracy, there's freedom of speech. People should be allowed to voice their opinions. And so what I'm doing right now is talking to, and all throughout summer, I've been talking to the faculty, talking to the students. The students have now come back, and I'm in smaller groups of students that I'm talking to various, and we are hearing the the diversity of opinions as a Stanford campus generally has on these issues. And so what we're going to do at the end of the quarter is to actually publish what we heard to the community and then see what we can do about it. But it's, I think, premature to take any steps before we have heard all the voices, and that's what's going on right now.
Thank you. John, turning over to you. How is the new school changing our approach to education? Are you offering different opportunities for students?
Yeah, so this is an amazing opportunity in terms of education, and we're creating new opportunities on three fronts. So on one front, our goal is to reach as many Stanford undergraduates as possible with classes, whether or not they end up majoring in a major that's housed within our school. And we have an initiative going right now where we're providing extra funds to help faculty members develop new courses that would provide openings into sustainability across campus. And these classes are being taught by faculty members within sustainability. Arun and Cam are offering a course on the energy transition. We also have courses from faculty members who are not part of the school. There's a course that's being taught in part through the School of Medicine on essentially climate anxiety and how people deal emotionally with the challenges of the world that we're facing right now. I'm planning to offer a course in the spring on extinction, looking both at ancient extinction events and at the modern. And these are all classes that are aimed to be open to all undergraduates, regardless, without prerequisites and regardless of what your undergraduate major is. Secondly, for students who aren't majoring in the school but want some coherent set of skills and curriculum, we're going to be offering certificate programs. And so that will allow students to do something that's smaller than a minor, but a set of classes around a coherent set of skills or topics so that they can come out of Stanford with something that they can document and that provides them with a coherent way of going out into the world and applying that knowledge. And then finally, of course, between launching new departments and re-envisioning the school overall, we will have new graduate programs in the social sciences addressed at sustainability, in ocean science, and then we're modifying departmental programs, so civil and environmental engineering, geological sciences, geophysics, are all looking at their PhD programs to Earth system science to align with the new School of Sustainability. In addition, I think the structure of the school will provide some new opportunities such as internships through the accelerator. And so our opportunity to engage students, both at the undergraduate and at the graduate level, in the world at large is increasing as a function of having this school.
You want to say a little bit about how classes are filling up?
Oh, yes. So I should mention, we have signs that what we're doing is working and that we need to do more. So we launched the first set of sustainability-related classes this fall. Within 24 hours, and really within about 12 hours, almost all of these classes were over-enrolled, the wait lists had filled, and we needed to go out and find new classrooms for them. That in part it was a success, right? That there's clearly demand that needed to be met. On the other hand, we underestimated the demand, and so we need to do better. We were able to find new classrooms for these classes, and so we were able to fill these up, but it's very clear that as word gets out that we really need to be thinking about speed and scale, right? How do we scale up these classes to handle, instead of 30 students, 60 students, 100 students, 500 students. And so fortunately, our senior associate dean who wasn't able to be here today, Lynn Hildemann, is working on an initiative to provide support to faculty members so that they can take the time and effort to build up these classes and to adapt the classes to address numbers of students that are much larger than what we've been accustomed to working with.
Wonderful. So I am not checking my text. Actually, I am, but this is where the questions are coming in. So now I'm going to start turning over to your questions. Maybe Jenna, you can address this question from the audience. How will the school engage with and learn from people worldwide who are living with the effects of climate change? Maybe you can illuminate from the work that you're doing internationally.
Sure. And I would say, actually, all three of my eyes, so I'm nominally looking after institutes, so the Woods and Precourt Institute and their engagement with the school, the Sustainability Research Initiatives Program, which provides funds for groups of faculty, students, and staff to engage in new research on pressing sustainability issues, and then these international partnerships. So the through line here is connection, right? It's about this engagement or connecting groups both within Stanford across all 7 schools, but importantly with those external partners. So with specific regard to this question of connecting with communities and organizations in areas of the world that are most impacted, I think that the initiatives program will really help move this forward. We have organized resources for faculty groups around key themes that emerge through the long-range planning process that people on this stage led and shepherded. And some of those are areas where Stanford already has a deep bench and expertise, like energy technologies and health and the environment. But some are newer, like sustainable cities and environmental justice. And the idea for the initiatives is that this group will come together, kind of develop a vision, and that vision will include this engagement, right? So who are your stakeholders? Who are the partners that you need to be talking to in order to maximize or amplify the impact that you're going to have? And I think a key challenge for us is to think about the kinds of support that faculty, students, and staff, those teams will need for that engagement, right? Because that's not costless if you're doing it properly. That takes time and thought, and often a skill set that, at least as faculty, we don't naturally train in that. So trying to provide through the institutes and the initiatives the support that everyone needs to engage effectively is a #1 priority. On the international partnerships, I'll tell you that the world is knocking. So we are getting dozens of inquiries every week from institutions in the public, private, and academic sectors that want to explore potential collaboration with the Doerr School, with Stanford. And Arun very kindly sends all those to me, right? So I'm a very full inbox. So we're also trying to think about how to manage all of these requests so we can take full advantage of that partnering opportunity.
Great. Arun, there's a question about whether you could talk a little bit more about the accelerator and how this will work.
Yeah, so the accelerator is really about impact and impact in the world around. It's a different or amplifying how we engage with society. And this is really about rolling up our sleeves and getting into the trenches and solving some problems, using our knowledge in delivering some solutions. And as I said, we cannot do this alone. We need partnerships. We need partners because we are an academic institution and our partners have to be either NGOs or governments or businesses out there in the community. And so the community engagement part is extremely important for us. We are going to create a global network of partners that we can work with around the world, just like Jenna is doing now. and then engaging them and listening to what the real issues are in the ground. Not what we perceive in Silicon Valley, but what the real issues are, bringing them out here, co-developing, unleashing the talent out here, and co-developing solutions and helping them implement. Now that may require capital. Well, we're going to aggregate, we're going to create a consortium of capital providers at the early stage to late stages. It could be a digital platform. In fact, right now we are developing something with Google, a dashboard. Just like in COVID, you had a dashboard in Johns Hopkins University where if you wanted to find out what's going on in Indonesia, you just had to click it and find out how many cases, what kind of mask they have, or and the human response that was created. We don't have anything right now on climate events that are going on around the world. We are creating that with a partner, in this case Google, who knows how to handle data. And so that's the kind of partnership that we'll have to do. And these are technological solutions, these are policy solutions, potentially. These are convening as a platform to move the ball forward. And so that's how we do it. And there's a part of education that is so important out here. More than 60% of the Fortune 500 companies have made a climate commitment. They really don't know how to get there. Most major nations have a climate commitment with a target date. They really don't know how to get there. I call this like marriage. You made a commitment. Now people are trying to figure out the details of how to get there. And I think education on the fundamentals of what we heard is going to be so important. So there's an education part which is going to be important. That's part of the accelerator, is to really think globally. It's about impact at speed and scale.
Okay. There's a question about sustainable agriculture. Who would be the best person to, Scott, the soils person maybe? Okay, so the question is, sustainable agriculture is critical for climate change. How will the school engage in that effort?
Yeah, that's a good question on multiple fronts. One is that we have some really talented research groups that are helping to run food security and environment program. And they take a very global perspective of the strains on agricultural production, thinking through the present, but also the future. So thinking through as we see the climate change, both in terms of temperature increases, but also change in precipitation patterns, what crops are going to grow best where, how to alter those crops, and then thinking through large data science projects about how you can do the optimal management perspectives, both in terms of crop, but also in terms of fertilization. And then we have the people that are like myself that are a little bit more granular, that get in and think about the below ground processes and how those are also changing in the present, but also in the future. And that goes around thinking about two aspects. One, how do you make current agriculture more sustainable? Let me rephrase that. How do you take current mechanized agriculture and make it more sustainable, so moving away from synthetic fertilizers and pesticides? And how do you take the yield gaps that you find in many developing economies and start to amplify those through low-cost amendments to things like soils for increased water holding capacity or fertilizers? And so we're taking that multi-pronged approach across campus.
Can I add to that? We also have a new department in behavioral sciences where some of the things that would be relevant here are how do farmers make decisions, right? Where do they get their information? Who do they trust, right? When they're being told, try this instead of that. And then on the demand side, as consumers, what food choices are we making that drives these production decisions around the world? So I'm also really excited about that part being built up in the school.
Wonderful. This is a question for John, perhaps. How are you partnering with the rest of Stanford? Will there be joint degrees with the GSB or computer science, for example?
Sure. So we're partnering with the rest of Stanford, I think, in a couple of ways, right? One is through joint faculty appointments. We have joint appointments for people with the Graduate School of Business, Law, Education. We're working on medicine. What am I missing?
Engineering.
Engineering, we have a joint department, right? So I guess that's one thing to point out, right, is that Stanford now has two joint departments. One is bioengineering. This was the first one that was developed jointly between medicine and engineering, and civil and environmental, and that was a new department when it was formed. Civil and environmental engineering is the first time that Stanford has taken an existing department and made it joint between two schools. And so that has been a learning experience for everyone involved, and it's really exciting because it allows civil and environmental engineering to get the most out of both being part of a world-class school of engineering and part of a brand new school of sustainability. It may be doubling their workload. We could talk to Jenna about that. On the degree program, our school is home to several interdisciplinary programs at different levels. So we're home to the Earth Systems program, to the Change Leadership for Sustainability program at the master's level, and the EIPER program, the Emmett Interdisciplinary Program in Environment and Resources. These are all degree programs that are staffed by faculty members across the university, but which are managed within the School of Sustainability. And so this, along with the institutes, gives us a way of connecting to the entire university. And gives us a way, EIPER allows both PhD programs and joint master's programs with the law school and business school. And so we're engaging with a huge number of students and as well as faculty across the university. And we anticipate, again, that that there will be growth in all of these programs, that the student demand clearly exceeds the capacity at the moment, and is one of the major drivers for our need to grow the faculty, is that we don't have enough faculty members yet to address the need to educate people on all of these topics.
Okay. Well, we cannot talk about sustainability without the energy question, and the energy guru is here. So we have a question about, several questions apparently, about hydrogen power and nuclear power. Does the school have an emphasis in a particular area of energy?
First of all, on this issue about energy guru, that's what my kids call me. And if I don't turn off the lights when I leave the room, there's protest at home, not just out here. So on the issue of, on the energy part, I think we are in a massive global transition going on from fossil-based to non-fossil. At the end, we all want to be in a fossil-free. The question is, what is the pathway that keeps the energy system reliable, as well as provides the basis for economic growth, and as we are seeing now, national security and climate security at the same time. And so this is a complex thing. Nuclear, at least personally, I feel ought to be as a largest carbon-free source of electricity in the United States. And frankly, one of the most difficult things to decarbonize is heat. And more than 50% of our energy delivery is heat. And that's the largest source of carbon-free heat. So I think nuclear will be there, but we are seeing, this is the first time in human history that we are seeing renewables at this scale being the lowest cost for electricity generation. I don't think we have quite grappled with that. Of course, the grid was never designed for fluctuating renewables, so we got to change our grid as well. And so this renewables revolution that is happening is going to transform our electricity system. And as we are seeing with cars, we are trying to electrify things that we're using fuels in the past. So the demand for electricity is going to go up even more than what we had before. And so the question is, can we go fast enough in renewables to be able to keep up with the increasing demand and decarbonize at the same time? So energy efficiency comes in then, because if the electricity demand keeps going up, we can't keep up with the renewables. So the energy efficiency of buildings, energy efficiency of our built environment offices, critically important. I could go on and on, but that's we are 10, the next decade is probably the most consequential decade in terms of our energy transition. Because if you don't go fast enough, just like in COVID, if you don't address it fast enough, you'll have problems later on. And I think the same thing with energy as well.
Let's see. There's a question about environmental justice and how the school will address this. Who would be the best person to address this question, Scott?
I'll take that one again. So just like with DEI, we have an associate dean that is dedicated entirely to environmental justice issues. So Rodolfo Durzo has taken on that role. We have a really wonderful community already that's engaged at the university level on the environmental justice working group. And Rodolfo has been part of that. He's now really championing that cause within the school and working with Paula Wielander, who's the associate dean for DEI. They are championing this effort, and we have this wonderful arc going this year on a lecture series that's going to bring in some of the top scholars across the country. We're also then starting to move forward on what will likely be a center that will be formed on environmental justice that will have community engagement work as well as scholarship embedded in it.
Great. And relatedly, there was a question about the Institute for Sustainable Societies.
Jenna, you want to take this on?
Sure. So I mentioned the Woods Institute and the Precourt Institute, but there's also a plan to establish a third institute, as Akiko said, focused on, or with the working title of Sustainable Societies. And the basic rationale is this, that in both Woods and Precourt, faculty are working on a diverse set of environmental sustainability issues, organized really by domain or content, right? So oceans and conservation and energy. And, but primarily, not exclusively, but primarily the orientation is engineering and physical life sciences. And I think everyone in those communities recognizes that issues like behavior, policy, some of these more social science dimensions are very, very important, but they're often not the starting point. They're not the focus of the scholarship. They're kind of a little bit around the edges. So both to establish sort of a critical mass of scholars who really do think about those dimensions first and foremost, right, and could think about them with regard to almost any environmental issue, right? Incentives, behavior, motivation, policy, governance. So that's one function, I would say, of the Sustainable Societies Institute. But it's also, I think, important to recognize how much that community could help with this bridging that we've been talking about, right? Because very often, the kinds of institutions that we want to speak with or talk to about scaling are the ones who are focused on policy or regulation or standards, right? And so having scholars who really think about these issues up front, and also things like implementation science, what does it take to do effective work in a university setting and have it be adopted throughout the world, right? Having scholars that ask those questions day in and day out, I think, is a good way to build on our aspirations for partnership and scale.
There's a question about national security threats and how the school would address those. John, maybe?
Sure.
Or Arun, whoever would like to take this on.
I mean, national security threats are, I would say right now, cyber is a big one. And we have an initiative in the Precourt Institute called Bits and Watts, which is about the electricity grid. Because if our energy infrastructure could be compromised. Mm-hmm. And for example, I was in the Biden-Harris transition team leading the energy effort when solar wind got discovered. And that had been around for a while. We just discovered it then. And the first thing was that, okay, is our electricity system or is it natural gas system, distribution network, is it compromised or not? And if you look at the energy infrastructure and utilities, they're constantly being hounded by phishing attempts and all of this. This is a big deal. And so, yes, I mean, we will be in our institutes in the sort of use-inspired research, we are looking at that. But as you also saw, are witnessing right now, energy is being weaponized. And the question is, how can one address that? And this is about energy security. And we realized out here that we cannot turn off the gas in Germany and Europe right away. The only thing we can do is to displace it and create the source elsewhere. So I think the big challenge that we will have to face and have to in terms of policy is that how do you address the current energy security issues while also addressing climate security issues? And this is a non-trivial challenge. And there are timescale. If someone does not have energy today, we have to provide it. But yet at the same time, we have to address the climate security, because if you're using fossil fuel and the carbon dioxide goes up, we have to remove it in some other way. And it has only accelerated Europe's transition to renewables even more, because if you look at Denmark learned from the issues that were related to the oil embargo in the 70s, and they turned around and they went renewable, right? The same thing is going to happen now in Germany and France and other. France is better suited because they've got nuclear. But Germany decided to turn off its nuclear, and that is a major issue. Instead of going towards coal, they may be better off with that. So this is a complex issue. I'll stop at that. But yes, we will be looking at that in our institutes.
Okay. So we have a little bit over 5 minutes left. And there's apparently many questions about how alumni can be engaged. So maybe each one of you could address that question and somehow combine it with my question that I have here about what excites you the most when you think about the school 10 years from now. So how can alumni be engaged, and what excites you the most? So Scott, would you like to start?
Sure. I'll start with what excites me the most and from 10 years from now, and it's really that we're seeing this new formulation of how the university is structured around taking ideas and moving those into reality. And I think 10 years from now, we're going to see the impacts of that transition really happening, and that just gets me really, really excited. And we have the resources. So the alumni, one, you can be part of our network for how we engage the outside world, right? So we need conduits to get to be working with us outside. You can give us ideas, right? We try to formulate ideas, but we always need more. And then third one is you can continue to help empower us with the resources that we need to drive this forward.
Well, you kind of stole my thunder here, because I'm the engagement person, if you recall, and I think that's exactly right. We'll have a number of new initiatives, so I hope you'll stay in touch and informed about the kinds of things that are getting launched, and if something is in your wheelhouse and you have ideas or suggestions or connections or resources, sure, please don't be shy. I really understand the immense resource that Stanford alumni are, and we're going to be firing on all cylinders and looking at a number of different issues. And I'm imagining that almost everyone in this room would have a connection with one of these topics coming up. So we really do want to hear from you.
In terms of what excites me the most, I think I've been involved recently in a faculty advancement network of Ivy Plus universities, and I think one of the things that excites me most about the vision for this school is the intellectual breadth of what we're building, going from engineering to natural sciences to social sciences, involving law and business. I expect and hope that we will become a model for how other universities go after sustainability. And so my hope is that we can't do it Stanford alone. My hope is that in 10 years we'll see other universities broadening their visions as well of what a school of sustainability looks like. I think Scott and Jenna have covered the alumni engagement quite well. I do think on the education side, in our classes, we've always had a tradition of bringing in external partners to help educate our students, right? So that they can hear from people in the public sector, in the private sector, in other academic institutions, bring their vision into Stanford classes for our students. We need that more than ever. The challenges we're facing are really complex. They involve all of the world. We have Stanford alumni everywhere in the world, everywhere in the United States, and so we will certainly be looking to some of you, and I imagine many of you in the room have interests in these areas. We will be looking to you to help educate the next generation of Stanford students, and so that's certainly one way that you can pay it forward to the classes of 2024 and beyond.
Well, let me first start by saying that I wish I was an undergraduate entering Stanford now. Because I've been in academia now for 33 years, and frankly, I have not seen anything like this before. Because this is a moment, it's a very special moment, where we have the opportunity to reimagine academia and its engagement with society. And we're offering the opportunity for our students to get the benefit of this reimagination and be purposeful for society, right? This is super exciting. I'm excited to be working with the team out here and with all of you in creating this environment. And given after the announcement, I can't tell you the excitement around the world. I've been getting emails. Some of them I'm sending to Jenna. Many of them I'm not, actually, just so you know. And I had the Singaporeans visit yesterday, not from academia. Before that, the Minister of Scotland was on Wednesday, and we had the President of Portugal come, and they're all realizing there's something different going on, and something big is happening out here. And I think everyone's rooting for our success because they realize this is absolutely necessary for the world. That's the exciting part. So if in 10 years, and as I said, the next decade is the most consequential decade we have. If we can make some dent in this problem, and we are only a small, unit compared to the rest of the world, so as I said, we need partners. But if collectively making dent to the world, I think that's super exciting. And along the way, get our students engaged as well. So that's what excites me. And if you can stay engaged and help us, I just want to, you talked about alums. I want to highlight one alum, Holmes, out here, who is here teaching class in the dorms, making our dorm sustainable, one of the dorms, right? Isn't that what you're doing? All of them, yes. That's the spirit.
Wonderful.
That's what we need. That's what your engagement, your nurturing, your stewardship of our students, internships and jobs, whatever. So all of those, all of the above, and that's what we need.
Right. Yes, when we think about the multiplier effect of all the students and the alumni going off and doing something, and here's the Stanford power, and the ripple effects are just maybe something we cannot even imagine, but we will need that. So please stay engaged. I think I've been asked to chair these task forces and been moderator because I am a stickler to time. And it's exactly 4:15. We must end our excellent panel. Thank you very much for our panelists, and thank you for the audience for being here today. I hope you spread the word about the school and stay involved. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Akiko.
Thank you.